Ziyaret seferleri. Biz aslında. Bravo.
Arapça bilseniz Arap ülkelerde bilecektiniz. İşte bilmem başka Rusça bildiğiniz için orayı anlayabilecektiniz. Sadece bir lisanınız müthiş bir şeydi.
Yeah.
İşte bunu bir öğrencimiz gibi düşünün. O orkestra şefini, bir sınıfı, bir classroom gibi düşünün. İşte nasıl her birini idare etti ve o en çatlak sesi, yazı makinesiyle orkestraya uyum sağladığı zaman nasıl müthiş bir şey olur. Önemli olan işte bizlerin muallim olarak, orkestra şefi olarak onları idare edebilmek, her birini ahenkli olarak. Yoksa her biri ayrı ayrı bir öğrenci, her biri. Şimdi burada her biriniz ayrı bir güzelliksiniz. Her biriniz ayrı bir insansınız. Sizler fabrikadan çıkmadınız ki, işte bir zavoddan çıkmadınız ki. Siz her biriniz işte beyefendi, siz her biriniz güzelsiniz. Böyle olduğumuz için güzeliz zaten. Böyle olduğumuz için zenginiz. Ama herkes ben olsaydı o zaman 50 taneye 60 taneye gerek yoktu. Bir tane ben yeter, bir tane yeter, bir tane yeter. İşte ama bizim mesleğimiz insan yönetme mesleği.
O to all. If we go R, it's oo, through. This is awful. If we have cough, now cough is different than tough. Tough is cough is an off. That's even worse. That's hiccup. So it's up. And then the bough of a tree. The bow of a tree. So it's difficult. So if we look at how this looks like a child is being tortured, but it's really not. When they study, in order to understand how people read, they put these kinds of goggles on people and they had them read things and they photographed them and they saw where their eyes focused and they saw how they moved their eyes on the page and where they went forward and when they went backwards, and they tried to measure visual acuity. So this is some of the research that went into some of the bottom-up studies. They looked at this. If you can see, there are these light blue dots, and that's where in each place the eye of a child focused as they were reading along. And it worked pretty well in this case. They kept on going just like that. It doesn't always. Sometimes in reading, people will jump too far and then they'll go back and then they'll go forward again and they'll... It matters. There's a difference according to individual languages. Some languages, Hebrew for example, people look in a shorter space. In English, it's about 15 characters that you see pretty clearly. If you look at the visual acuity, they tried to sort of make it how it looks to your eyes when you're looking at the text, when you're focused. So it's he wasn't kind to me today, even. When they're focused on he, it sort of gets progressively fuzzy. It seems to be the case that in English, I said it's about 15 letters that you focus on and all, and it seems to be that there are about 4 on the right side. But students were taught to sound out the individual word, to start at the beginning and work on the sound and make sure you understood what you said. It was very much step by step. Like I say, because you were focused on the act of picking up and building on your strength in reading, they weren't as interested in the story. The story was much less important than practicing those letters and practicing reading those letters. So this book series dominated American education for a bunch of years. It's called Dick and Jane, and it's oral reading. You know, the new family. Oh, Dick, said Jane, no one lives in the new house. Who will come to live in it? Dick said, it's a big house. Maybe a big family will live in it. Yes, said Jane, a big, big family. Maybe the family will have girls. I want girls to play with. Oh no, said Dick, I want boys to play with. I want boys to live with. Maybe the family will have boys. So this sort of thing. Now, what's interesting, and what later on we'll come back to it, but I'll mention it now, is look at how culturally laden this is. How many sort of cultural well, first of all, is it interesting story? No, not at all. It's very uninteresting. But it's not, they're not worried about being interesting. They're worried about making sure that the children can sound out the words. They're small words, they're simple. But then there are a lot of cultural values, which people talked about later on. I mean, clearly, they're teaching, well, first of all, the children are white. And there's a view that later on we'll talk about in whole language that this type of material often focused on just one part of the world and not a broader picture of how people are or how people live.
I have it divided into 2 different parts. The first part will talk about third language acquisition. In the second part, we'll talk a little bit about teacher research and sort of how that could relate to third language acquisition. All right, in our first part, we'll start with a warm-up. And then I'll give you a brief introduction, some background information. I'll talk briefly about some work that I did with third language phonetics and third language pronunciation. And then we'll talk about what all this might mean when you're teaching a language or when you're teaching English. In the teacher research part, we'll talk about what teacher research is, a little bit about how you might go about it and why you might do it. All right, I do have a warning for you today. This presentation will be somewhat interactive, so be prepared to do some partner work. So it's basically a plenary plus some activities, so it's a plen activity today. That's our session today. And any time that you see this little rating symbol down here, that means that you'll have to do some partner work. So make sure that you're sitting near to a few colleagues. So our warm-up. So I have for you today a song. This is actually a song recorded by the U.S. Department of State Regional English Language Officer Kevin McCoy. He's based in Kiev with me. And I'm I'm not going to tell you what this song is about, but I'm going to play it, and I want you to tell me what all of these things on this list, their country names, what they might have in common, okay? So listen and think what they might have in common.
Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Singapore, the Philippines, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, Zambia, Tanzania, Liberia, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Uganda, Jamaica, Kenya, Cameroon, Sierra Leone, Zimbabwe, Ireland, the UK, Canada, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Hong Kong, the USA, Trinidad and Tobago.
All right. So you have a list of countries. If you could turn to a partner and discuss what do you think these countries have in common. So just maybe 30 seconds, 1 minute, turn to someone near you. What do these countries have in common? Your ideas. Were you familiar with third language acquisition? All right, we have lots of hands. All right, everyone's familiar with the term. Good. And how did you define it with your partner? What is third language acquisition?
I'm saying that if you know 3 languages, you are trilingual. If you know 2 languages, you are bilingual. And if you are, you know only 1 language, you are English.
You're English. Okay. If you know, I think I'll repeat it for everyone. If you know 3 languages, you're trilingual. If you know 2, you're bilingual. And then you said if you know 1 language, you're English. Okay. I have heard it. If you know 1 language, you're American. So that's the version I have heard.
And the same with video. You have video clips there that are just embedded in the material. You can have things like subtitles popping up or not. You can have things like the audio script with a highlighter that moves down to help the students, because I think that students often have problems with listening, in my experience. One of the problems is they don't have anything to look at whilst their ears are working. Now, we need to train them to that, but a support mechanism would be, at a certain stage, allowing them to see the script and they can follow then the written word as they listen. Seeing, I think many students, about 60% of our students are primarily visually orientated. So suddenly, using an audio CD is maybe one of the most unnatural things we can do in the classroom. Using a video is better because you can see body language, you can see facial expression, you can even read people's lips. And yet we ask students to listen to audio CDs. So we need to do a lot to prepare them, to build up a picture in their head of the situation, to help them. But at a certain point, I don't think it's a bad idea. Maybe not for the first listening, we want them to get them used to listening without visual support. But at a certain point, to allow them to see the words and to follow. There's something very reassuring about reading and listening at the same time, and it can work to complement both skills. I think if you're working with a story, having the written story on the page and reading the story aloud, or asking the students to listen to actors reading the story aloud, is a way of supporting the reading. So listening and reading can work together very well. So this kind of software, I think, is well worth investigating, whichever course book you're using, if you're using course books,
Yes.
then have a look and see if there is a classware that goes with the book, because it will start to appeal to those Generation Z students. I wouldn't say do it every lesson, because it's a bit like, if every day was a weekend, the weekend wouldn't be special. So I think sometimes it's okay to mix traditional things. In one of the workshop sessions, people were talking about dictations and saying, okay, dictation, very traditional methodology, but why not use a little bit of traditional stuff along with the new stuff? And I think that is my recipe. Don't get rid of the traditional, but fit it in and sometimes use this digital, and then you'll have variety. And that's what Generation Z students like. They will forgive you for lots of things. They will forgive you if the internet doesn't work. They will forgive you if you make a mistake writing a word up on the board, but they will not forgive you if you bore them in their English class. So variety is the key.